Hey, welcome back to Well, That's Interesting. Another day, another milestone edition. Today is episode 240. This tiny caterpillar defends the tiniest territory known, and we need to talk about the man versus horse marathon. My friends, today's theme is victory. You and I need to give ourselves a goddamn round of applause because reaching this number of episodes is no easy feat. According to Amplify Media and Pod News, although 3 to 4 million podcasts exist, 44% have less than 3 episodes. In fact, only 720,000 or so have more than 10 episodes. Thanks to you, this show has grown into something of an oddity, which is truly fitting for the kind of stuff we cover. Thanks to your tuning in week after week, hitting 5 stars or a thumbs up on your podcast platform of choice, for leaving a quick review or a comment on the socials, for telling a friend about what god-awful or awfully inspiring thing you heard about because you can't go on living holding that kind of information alone. All of these things. This is what makes a podcast flourish. At the time I'm writing these notes, in mid-April, there are currently over 2,600 subscribers on Spotify alone. And if that number sounds like it too has grown, you're right. Just 10 episodes ago, during episode 230, never before seen fungus infects spiders, turning them into zombies, and let's talk about sea vomit, an invasive species off the Canadian coast, I mentioned we reached 2,400 subscribers. So in just 2 months, we gained 200 new members of the flock. So damn, you're good. And I'm pretty good myself with all the researching, writing, and recording day after day, but you, my God, amazing. So to celebrate, why not talk about other monumentous achievements? Ones that are equally as rare and honestly strange as fuck. In the first half of the show, I'm going to ask you to brace yourself for the cutest act of aggression from one of the smallest creatures we've featured on WTI. Researchers have discovered a type of moth caterpillar defending one of the smallest territories ever seen, the tip of a leaf, barely 1 centimeter wide. For years, entomologists noticed that this particularly irritable teeny caterpillar, on occasion, like when approached, for example, vibrated and slammed their bodies against the leaf in a kind of tantrum. I mean, a tantrum from a caterpillar only about 2 millimeters or half the size of a grain of rice, but a tantrum nonetheless. This minute display left us humans with a sneaking suspicion that it's a sign of territoriality. We will meet the tiny but mighty species that calls the tip of a birch leaf home. We will get into the experiment performed by Dr. Jane Yak. Yes, the Dr. Yak, a professor of neuroethology at Carleton University in Ottawa, that included forcing confrontations between 2 barely perceptible warriors. We will look at the success rates and the reason as to why, of all places, they chose the goddamn tip of a leaf to begin with, and we will listen to what Dr. Yak calls a rap battle between competitors. It's outstanding. Then after the break, the moon landing, the agricultural revolution, the eradication of polio. These cannot hold a fucking candle to perhaps the greatest human achievement of all time, when a human outruns a horse in the man versus horse marathon. My friends, it will be my absolute honor to introduce you to a competition that has been raging since the early 1980s, an annual race over 22 miles or 35 kilometers where runners compete against riders on horseback through a mix of roads, treacherous trails, and steep mountainous terrain. We will get into its drunken origin story, because yes, of course, this started in a bar in a small town in Wales. We will get into the details as to how in the holy hell a marathon with non-human competitors actually works. We will talk about the many, many humans who have lost, and the very, very few who have triumphed. You could actually count them on one hand. We will hear from some participants of the 2022 race, and from the human victor. Yes, not we. A person won that year. We will get into how, finally, This kind of race is catching on worldwide, because of course it is. You don't have to be in Wales to cheer on a horse or a person. In the meantime, hi, I'm Jill Chacha, and if this is your first time listening, welcome to the flock, my award-winning business goose. To begin, I'm going to need you to stretch, hydrate, and channel your inner child because we're about to climb some goddamn trees, specifically alder and birch trees, dotting the border between the United States and Canada. Now, depending on the species, these babies can be anywhere between 15 to 100 feet tall, so I hope you're not afraid of heights. If you happen to be, well, just try and concentrate on something incredibly small, like the two-lined hook-tip moth that uses leaves and branches of these trees as a neonatal ward. Now, just like the name suggests, these moths have two elegant dark brown lines running across each light brown wing, and not only does their color do a smashing job of blending them into the bark, but their size makes them barely existent. As adults, their wingspan is only about 1 inch across. They is tiny, and as such, females lay some tiny-ass eggs, and they happen to be very meticulous about it, laying them in even rows along these leaves. Now, I have some great news. With us, several dozen feet up, is neuroethologist Dr. Jane Yak from Carleton University in Ottawa, and her colleagues, including Sarah Matheson, Leonardo Turchin, and Emily Mauduit. So it's actually pretty crowded up here, and I'm hoping these tree limbs are stable. Anyway, it's also 2008, a simpler year that in the time it takes to watch two-lined hook-tip moth caterpillars hatch, now your civil rights have been scrubbed. It was at this time Dr. Yak and the gang fell head over heels with these wee fuckers, and it kicked off a nearly 20-year-long observational study. The first publication was that same year, in 2008, and it focused on how newly hatched warty birch caterpillars, that's what the moth is called at this stage, and boy howdy, it is accurate. Just take a look over at today's post. They are warty. Anyway, the team noticed, 1, they lived alone and exposed on leaves, and 2, produced 2 kinds of vibrations. Now, this is all sorts of weird. Warty birch caterpillars are half the size of short-grained rice, and being so makes them an easy snack, to say the least. Usually newborn creatures this size generally take a safety in numbers approach by living in groups, building shelters, or hiding in leaf cover. But these dinky, warty guys give no fucks. They live completely alone and have been spotted hanging out on the tip of leaves, dancing like no one's watching. Curious if this was the typical case for warty birch caterpillars, the team revved up a new study by conducting an experiment in 2009. After collecting eggs laid by wild-caught female moths, they recreated 59 neonatal wards, which consisted of, quote, a single birch leaf on a birch twig, inserted into a hole in the lid of a water-filled plastic vial. One single neonate larva, less than 24 hours after hatching, was carefully transferred using a fine-tipped paintbrush to the centered top side of the leaf, end quote, from Yak and the Gang's study. Now, if you drop your yak and pick up your phone to tap on today's post, swiping past photos of the adult moths and the little caterpillars, you will see a delightful chart with objects labeled A through E. Now, A is a birch leaf, and if you fucking squint, there at the very tip is a caterpillar. It is so damn teeny, the team even drew a box around it to help us find it. Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. For you see, the yak wanted to know what directions the 59 larvae would go after hatching. And the results were fucking shocking. If you take a peek at item B, that's a pie chart. And that pie chart is 88% filled. That's the percentage of caterpillars who, after being born, booked it to the tip of the leaf. 88%. So it's safe to say that this species is a loner and likes to live on the edge. When they got there, a few things happened. For example, they nibbled on the leaf, they made a small silk mat from their butt, and then they rested. And they did this all after making a really loud fuss. Well, loud for them, anyway. In an interview posted on the Journal of Experimental Biology website, Yak said, quote, "We had to use specialized equipment to pick up the vibrations," end quote. That is cute. They are so small, the team needed to bust out a laser Doppler vibrometer to pick up any changes to the leaf when they moved. Yeah, long story short, this is a fancy pants device that uses 6 other devices to detect and record barely perceptible vibrations and converts the laser's frequency into crap our ears can hear. And because that there laser Doppler vibrometer was picking up vibrations and the sound, the team got to thinking, maybe, just maybe, that's a territorial signal. But the only way to confirm this is, you guessed it, by pitting one newborn against the other in a conflict we'd all pay good money to watch. Don't tell me otherwise. Luckily for us, it's completely free. So please, join me, will you, now in 2023. Yak and the gang are back in the Carleton University laboratory, and better than ever, meaning a new experiment was about to unfold. According to their latest fun paper called Buzzing Boundaries, Tiny Caterpillars Vibrate to Defend Leaf Tip Territories, a plastic vial with a twig containing a single birch leaf with one established larva was clamped to a sturdy stand positioned on an anti-vibration table. Very fancy. Vibratory signals were recorded from the leaf surface using the fancy pants laser Doppler vibrometer that we just talked about, and after the new hatchling made a beeline for the leaf's tip, that is when the show began. So, after 18 rounds of baby versus baby went down and 29 hours of recorded footage was observed, what did the team see? What did they hear? Drumroll, please. Thank you in the back. When a trespassing newborn was introduced to an occupied leaf, life imitated art, and the 2006 masterpiece Bring It On, All or Nothing unfolded before the team's eyes. When the squatter crossed the threshold or the narrow end of the leaf, both creatures began to twerk. And I'm not kidding. A type of scraping sound was documented, and it was produced when the caterpillar raised and then dragged the oar-shaped hairs on their anal segment, or their butt, against the leaf surface. They also produced a slight drumming sound by lifting their head and thorax and slamming it into the leaf as well. If you drop your own newborn and pick up your phone to head on over to today's post, you'll see a series of screenshots that show just how quick and intense these dance-offs actually are. That red dot on the leaf there, that's the laser from the vibrometer. And I went ahead and I circled the 2 competitors because, again, they're really tiny. Now, according to the study, when confronted by an intruder, the resident caterpillar dialed up their signal rate by about 4 times. But when that intruder breached the perimeter of the leaf tip, the defender escalated the signal rate by about 14 times, which translated to busting a move or vibrating nearly 25 times per minute. That sounds exhausting. And you know what? It worked. 10 out of 18 conflicts ended peacefully, with the interloper electric sliding away. But now that we've seen one of these conflicts over at the old social medias, I think it's time to actually have a listen, shall we? Here's 12 seconds of one particular dance move, and I'd like you to guess which end the caterpillar is using. Okay, are you ready? Here we go. Okay, now, if you guessed the butt, you are right. Yes, that came from the caterpillar scraping its butt against the leaf. It was intense, and I can see your face. You're thinking, yeah, Jill, if someone made that sound repeatedly, in front of me in that way, I too would leave. But what happened those other 8 times? You said 10 out of 18 conflicts ended peacefully. What happened? Well, great question, my ferocious business goose. As reported by Sabrina Imbler of Defector.com, quote, in 8 of these encounters, merely brushing against the body of another baby was enough to make a warty birch caterpillar take the plunge, leaping off the leaf where they dangled from a silken thread, end quote. So, the tip of a leaf not only feeds and homes the caterpillar, it's actually a quick way to escape when the conflicts get a little too vicious, or rather, touchy-touchy. So, an evicted resident uses a line of silk to make a getaway. Now, as for what the future holds for Dr. Yak and the gang, well, after proving that territorial disputes are playing out on the smallest scales using vibration, they're going to take it to the next level. They'll be investigating whether caterpillars can distinguish signals from different sources. And maybe they can even imitate vibrations made by predators like spiders. If so, that is damn impressive. But it's not as impressive as winning an argument with dance moves. After the break, we're leaving the treetops of North America for the hills of a small town in Wales. And it's home to a competition like no other. Grab a saddle or some running shoes. The Man vs. Horse Marathon is next. Stay tuned.
Hey, it's Paris. You know I love sparkly things, right? Like stars. Duh. And thanks to Hilton and AutoCamp, I just slept under them. Picture me serving looks by the fire outside my luxurious Airstream, making s'mores with the kids, while a national park is our backdrop. The great outdoors meets Hilton hospitality. That's hot. Explore all the new ways to stay at Hilton.com. Hilton for the stay.
So, you just started using LinkedIn Premium. Now what? Well, on your premium company page, you noticed around 7.5 times more page engagement and 5 times more page views. Well done. And now, new clients are messaging you. All because you're using LinkedIn Premium, which helps you get the business growth you want. Think big, small business. Think big. Start your free trial at linkedin.com/premium small business. That's linkedin.com/premium small business.
And we're back. We are so back. And my friends, I'm going to need you to stretch, hydrate, and channel your inner beast because we're about to embark on a 22-mile trail that's gonna suck. If you're human. To get there, we need to head on over to the Welsh town of Llanarted Wells. And for my fellow geographically challenged Americans, don't worry, I've got you. All you need to do is picture England. Thank you. Point to the lower right-hand corner, and there is London. And if you move your finger about 200 miles northwest, you'll be poking the south of Wales. And a town that really knows how to have a good time, Llanarted Wells. According to Ye Olde Wiki, you can fill your schedule here with pony trekking, mountain biking, walking, bird watching, a beer festival, the World Bog Snorkeling Championships, and the Welsh Open Stone Skimming Championships. And if you're still hungry for more hyper-niche wacky competition, you are very much in luck. Llanarted Wells is also home to the annual Man vs. Horse Marathon. And by the time you are hearing this episode, the 2025 race has just been completed a few days ago on June 14th. Now, I'm writing these notes on April 23rd, so I have no idea whether man or equine was triumphant. But what we can do is meander through the glorious history of this event and revel in the few times a person actually outran a horse that probably wasn't even trying. Anyway, join me, will you, at the Niwad Arms Hotel Bar, nailed it, in June of 1980. I just want you to know none of these words are spelt like what they sound like. It's very different. Niwad does not sound, it's not spelled the way it sounds. Anyway, it's June of 1980, and we're listening in on a conversation between two men who are on their third pint or so. Now, although the tone was serious, the topic, well, dare I say, was very much a topic for several drinks in. The landlord at the time, Gordon Green, he was also overhearing them. And they were debating whether, quote, over a significant distance across country, man was equal to any horse. After several more pints, the inevitable challenge was made, at which point Gordon Green decided that rather this be a private argument, it should be put to the test, in full public view. And this is exactly what happened every year since then. End quote. From the archived website, WilliamHillMedia.com. Yes, my friends. It was not the first nor the last challenge to be made over a few beers, but this one was damn special. Gather a few riders on horseback, gather a few people, pick a long-ass route over 22 miles, and see who could finish it in the fastest time. Now, for those with a sharp eye, you probably noticed 22 miles is shorter than the average marathon at 26.2 miles, but don't you worry. The Man vs. Horse Marathon absolutely makes up for it. Please, drop whatever reins you're holding right now and pick up your phone, tap on today's post over at the old social medias and swipe through until you see a photo of human marathon runners beside riders on horseback. And this is from the race in 2022. Now, I'm going to ask you to pay close attention to the faces of all the humans in this photo. I'll give you a sec. Yeah, that's the look of agony. Absolute, pure agony. These are people who realize they made a mistake. The horses, they're totally fine. But the people, agony. And you don't have to go very far, no pun intended, to see why. Just look behind them. That's a thick-ass forest surrounded by steep-ass hills. And what I mean to say is that this takes place through a terrain with a capital T. And it has to be to make it a challenge for an animal that has nearly 360-degree field of vision, can pull up to 3 times their own weight, and is made of about 700 muscles and can easily travel, quote, 20 to 50 miles in a day at a mixed gait of walking, trotting, and cantering, end quote, from the site Pirelli Horsemanship. Now, I had to give cantering a Google, and it turns out it's a 3-beat gait, falling between a trot and a gallop. So in sum, they don't have to try very hard to cover distance. Knowing what this animal is capable of, and from one look at the countryside here, you'd think finding enough people to sign up would be a challenge. But of course not. If there's an excess of anything, it's people who think they can challenge a large animal and win. Especially if there's a monetary reward as well. According to the event's official website, green-events.co.uk, and I'll say that again because I'm pretty sure most of you are writing this down, green-events.co.uk, the escalating jackpot for a runner who beats the first horse and rider starts at 500 pounds and increases by 500 pounds each year the event takes place until it's won by a human. Now, speaking of which, let's talk about that. How humans have fared in this mighty tournament, which I'm happy to report was pretty forward-thinking for its time, beginning in the 1980s. The first woman to run the race was Anne King in 1981, just a year later. For comparison, the first Boston Marathon was held in 1897, and women weren't allowed to run officially until 1972. As for winning, let's play a little game. Please, if you would. Pick a year between 1980 and 2024. When do you think the very first person outpaced a horse? I'll give you a sec. Okay, are you sitting down? Okay. The first victor was a man named Hugh Lobb, who crossed the finish line in 2 hours, 5 minutes, and 19 seconds, 2 whole minutes before a horse in the year of our Lord, 2004. Yes, on the 25th race, finally, a human told a horse to shove it. and Hugh took home the accumulated prize of £25,000. Now, luck and/or human endurance won again in 2007, but the horses, they made one hell of a comeback, winning year after year after year until 2022. Behold, what I believe to be a Pulitzer Prize-worthy article from James McCarthy of the BBC. Now, I'm just going to read it because I can't fix what ain't broke, and this reporting is a joy. It's mwah. From the news article, Man vs. Horse, Powys race won by runner Ricky Lightfoot. And Powys, by the way, is the county Thanarded Wells is located. And might I add, the guy is aptly named for this kind of victory. Here we go. Quote, "The winner of the grueling Man vs. Horse race has been revealed, and he had been awake for 29 hours before the event after flying from Tenerife to claim victory. Trail runner Ricky Lightfoot became only the third person to win the race since it started in 1980. He told the BBC he had woken up at 6 a.m. local time on Friday before catching a flight to Manchester at midnight. Landing at 4 a.m., he traveled to Wales, arriving at Thanarded Wells at 9 a.m. for the race at 11. Crossing the line, the 6'4" athlete had no idea whether he had won. After asking around, he discovered that he came out on top against 1,000 runners and 50 horses at the time of 2 hours, 22 minutes, and 23 seconds. He took home £3,500 after beating the first horse by more than 2 minutes on the 22.5-mile course. The 37-year-old Cumbrian said winning was, quote, pretty good like, and added, quote, "It's great to win the event and beat the horse. I called my partner and I said, I beat the horse. And she said, are you joking? And I said, no, I did. And she was like, oh my God." I don't know why she's Irish there. I just threw that in. The firefighter said he had been quietly confident, saying, quietly confident, saying, quote, "I thought I could give the horse a good race," end quote. Since his win, he's been asked if he will enter the Grand National next. Quote, "It would be great if I could enter and win the Grand National," he said. "I never rode a horse in my life. I once rode a donkey. I once rode a donkey at Blackpool. I'm so sorry. Okay, no, I can do this. I once rode a donkey at Blackpool Pleasure Beach, though. End quote. I'm crying. After winning, the father of two that made his way home to Maryport in Cumbria, as he had to be back at work at 7:30 on Sunday the next day. Race director Mike Thomas said Mr. Lightfoot, a member of the Cumbria Running Club in Ellenborough, AC, beat the horses, quote, quite comfortably on Saturday. The last time a human beat a horse in the race was in 2007, and the first time was in 2004. The race, which returned after 2 years due to the pandemic, began on tarmac but took in forest tracks and open moorland. The jackpot prize for the runner who beats the first horse and rider starts at £500 and increases by £500 each year. The event takes place until it's won. The most recent prize pot had been accumulating since 2014. End quote. Oh my God. Oh, that was absolutely fantastic. Again, congratulations to the human Ricky Lightfoot, who took home £3,500. And my friends, the good news just keeps on coming. Prepare for this. Humans are on a winning streak, as Daniel Connolly took first place not only in 2023 but again in 2024. He won back to back. Daniel, round of applause. So for humans, that's 3 years in a row. Now, as for this year, it's a mystery to me, as I am in the past. But you are in the future, so please give it a search, give it a Google. In the meantime, if you find yourself inspired and in the United States, specifically Prescott, Arizona, in October 2025, and you believe you have what it takes to tell a horse to go fuck itself, I have the best news. You can register for a 50 or 25-mile race or a half marathon over at managainsthorse.com. Again, that's managainsthorse.com. And you can compete because, yes, of course, something like this made it to our country. If you head on over to the site, on the landing page, there's a small summary of this race's history, and it is nearly identical to the origin story of the man versus horse marathon. Slightly different there. Quote, in 1983, Man Against Horse began by a bar bet on Whiskey Row in Prescott, Arizona between Gerald Brownlow and cowboy Stephen Rafters. Gerald bet Stephen he could outrun his horse in the race. End quote. Now, is this sheer coincidence? Was the concept stolen? Did they just change the name? Can you believe that this ends in drama and controversy? I, for one, am completely thrilled, and I need the investigative documentary. I can't sleep until it's done. And thank you for listening, rating, subscribing, telling your friends about tiny caterpillars and their asses. And then when they seem to look away, tell them about the Man vs. Horse Marathon and how fucking amazing it is. And thank you for listening. Well, I said that already. I said all those things. Thank you for being a member of the flock. Either a long-time listener or brand new. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for everything you're doing. And a victorious thanks to the folks over at Airwave Media, the podcast network to which WTI belongs. If you love this show, and you do, you'll love the other podcasts in this family. And please, stay interesting.